Welcome to everybody to our Nurses Week webinar. We are so excited to have you here with us. Before we get started, I wanted to remind folks that because this is a webinar, you will only be able to see the panelists as they come on, not yourselves or other members of the audience, and you will be muted. But I'm Valerie Burke from the Goodwin House Foundation, and we're so pleased to celebrate Nurses Week with you and present this webinar featuring some of our very own caregivers. We really hope this webinar will enlighten you on the critical role that these care partners play in the Goodwin House community and how the foundation is able to support them in the work that they do through the generosity of our donors. Now, I'm so pleased and honored to present our President and CEO, Rob Liebrick.
Thank you so much, Valerie, and happy Nurses Week to everyone. Thanks for being a part of this webinar with us. I'm Rob Liebrick and so proud to be in service to Goodwin House. Our mission at Goodwin House is to support, honor, and uplift the lives of older adults and the people who care for them. And there's no bigger group of people who care for them than our nurses and our certified nursing assistants. In fact, of the 870 staff members that make up Goodwin House, both in service to Goodwin House at Alexandria, Bailey's Crossroads, our hospice palliative care team, our private duty home care, and our Goodwin House at Home, along with our Goodwin House Home and Community-Based Services, so our home health side, we have nearly 40% of our staff are represented by our nursing and care staff in total. That's a huge number of individuals. When we think about that impact, we want to look at the macro circumstances of what's going on in our country. If we think about the population growth of older adults, we're going to be doubling the number of older adults in our country between 2020 and 2040. So we have a doubling occurring right now of older adults. And what that means is we're going to have likely more people who will need more support and more care over time. What we're also experiencing is a decrease in the number of people having babies. So we're having the slowdown of our population at the exact same time that we're having the doubling of the older population. And this is going to run into a big problem of being able to provide care and services to all those who will need it over time. We're already seeing signs of this. In fact, an article in the Washington Post just a couple of years ago talked about the experience in Maine, where people could not find caregivers and are literally moving out of the state as older adults to find a state that has more hands to be able to provide care for them over the course of time. We're noticing this also with the recent pandemic. Coming through the pandemic, 3 out of 10 current providers of care are contemplating changing fields altogether. So we see that we're really stressed right now with all the challenges associated with finding enough caregivers. Now, there is some good news along the way, something that when we were talking with the folks and the leaders at Northern Virginia community colleges, they talked about something known as what they're calling the Fauci effect. And what that is that there's a huge number of new nurses who want to come into the field. Unfortunately, there's not enough spaces for new nurses to get educated and trained. And we've been talking with Northern Virginia about the idea of doubling the capacity of new nurses to start to serve more people. In order to do that, they have the building already. They just need to be able to have nighttime classes and weekend classes, something they don't have today. And they can double the participants. What that requires is paying about $115,000 per professor, or in essence, about four professors worth needed to support the doubling of new nurse programs in our region. That's a fantastic opportunity for all of us to think about. It's also fantastic to think about the great opportunities that the foundation has already supported over the course of the years. We've seen that the foundation has been a critical factor for educational growth of our nursing staff and our certified nursing assistants. We've seen that certifications have been paid for and compensated, so professional certifications are covered. We've seen that during pandemics, people needing emergency loans and emergency considerations for the hardships that they're going through as family members. So the foundation's come through in all those ways. We've also seen a number of nurses who wanted to pursue citizenship. And so the Foundation for Goodwin House has been able to come around and support that as well. All of these factors are really needed because as we're trying to recruit and retain people, we need as many tools at Goodwin House as possible. we know that on average, once someone is a nurse with us, they stay at least 7 years. And that's really, really good news. So if we can get them in the door, we can keep them in our Goodwin House family. And that's certainly something that we want to do again and again and again, and we'll need to do as we grow our services to older adults within the communities that we serve. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tony Tombasco, who will be moderating today's session. And Tony is a board member both on the foundation and for Goodwin House Inc. in total. He is also a professor, former professor at Georgetown University, my alma mater as well, so go Hoyas. And an overall wonderful individual who continues to bring us back to what is important for us to focus on as an organization, while looking forward strategically and positioning us well for the future. Most importantly, he is a resident at Goodwin House Bailey's Crossroads too. So Tony, please take it away.
Thank you, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here to celebrate Nurses Week and to celebrate our caregivers and maybe get a little insight into what they're doing, and then also what the foundation is doing to help in the caregiver field. So the board is coming on, our panelists, and I'd like to just mention that I've got a number of caregivers in my own family, so I've got more personal experience with that, as well as the fact that I have met a number of the caregivers that are on the panel here, and I'm looking forward to meeting the rest of them as we go along. So today we want to kind of move in a couple of different directions. We want to hear a little bit about the panelists themselves, then we want to hear a little bit about their work, and then maybe some insights they might be able to share with us about the future of caregiving. So to begin with, I'd like to just call on each of the panelists. I'll give their name and then they can talk a little bit about themselves. So the first round is to kind of find out a little bit about the panelists. So I'd ask each of you to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to work maybe at Goodwin House, how long you've worked here, and then maybe you might have a story from childhood or a special person or event that kind of got you into caregiving. So just give a little description of that if you can. So why don't we start with Justine, and then we'll go around to each of the panelists.
Thank you. So I'm Justine Campbell, and I am currently the Director of Clinical Services for our Goodwin House Palliative Care and Hospice group. I came to nursing through a second degree program. I initially had a bachelor's degree in business and from NYU, and shortly after 9/11, I wasn't able to find the job in the area I wanted and landed sort of serendipitously at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. There in orientation, I had sort of a calling moment where I felt like I am where I'm supposed to be, even though I wasn't sure what that was. So I was inspired by the nurses and doctors I worked with there, and I went back to school. And therefore, I came back to Virginia, where I was from. I got a second degree in nursing from George Mason, and started working at Georgetown University Hospital in oncology, inpatient oncology. I was there for many years, and I started to discover that my real comfort and my passion lied with walking with those who are at end of life. And I found that providing that end of life in care in the hospital, while it was rewarding, it wasn't exactly the way that I would have, the way that it can and should be done for everybody. So I changed gears and started to work for Home Hospice, a home hospice agency, where I really felt like I belonged. Started to walk with people in their home and their end of life, and met them where they were. And that took me here. I had a life change. I had a baby and needed a different work setup. And nursing is so great like that, because, if you need to get away from the bedside or you want to move into a nursing leadership program, you can. So I was able to come here and join the hospice and palliative care team, where I had the opportunity and the privilege to start to support our whole team of nurses in doing what I used to do. So it's been really wonderful to take what I've known and what I experienced as a home hospice nurse and be able to support those nurses that now work with me and take care of our patients. So that is how I came here, and I've been here for almost 6 years.
Thank you. That's very good to kind of see the different sides of nursing too, that all came out in your description. Kathy, would you like to share with us also?
Sure, thank you. I have a unique experience of having worked at Goodwin House three separate times. I started here many years ago as a part-time night supervisor. And then I was asked to be the night supervisor at Goodwin House West, which is the original name of Goodwin House Bailey's Crossroads. I came to Goodwin House Bailey's Crossroads and worked as their night supervisor, and then their assistant director of nursing, and then their director of nursing and director of health and wellness. All in all, I was there for a total of about 15 years. I was fortunate to be present when we started Goodwin House Hospice and Goodwin House Home Care. And so it's been great to see these programs grow over time. It's just a unique experience to know what they were at the very beginning and then to see how things have changed. I left after 15 years and went to actually hospice and palliative care and worked as a clinical manager there. And just for a year, I actually certified as a hospice and palliative care nurse, but really figured out I missed long-term relationships with people. And yeah, many of the people I had known at Goodwin House, I had known 10, 12 years residents, and I missed that. I really enjoyed knowing people over the long haul and knowing their families and everyone involved with their lives. I came back to Goodwin House. I worked another 5 years at Goodwin House Bailey's Crossroads and left to become an administrator at Shenandoah Valley Westminster Canterbury in Winchester. And that gave me an opportunity to be with my family. I'm from that area. I was with my father during his final illness. And then I had the opportunity to return to Goodwin House Alexandria as the director of nursing and director of clinical services. I also got the opportunity to chase a grandchild. So I laugh when I'm asked about the numbers of times I've been here. I say a bad penny keeps turning back up. So, so that's my story. I think a love of working in this field, really, I've known a lot of people who this is a real calling for them. I often see a person who's had a really close relationship with a grandparent, and that was true for me. I also grew up in a neighborhood that had no children. And so to this day, I have never turned a somersault, and I don't plan on it. But I enjoyed being with older people and visiting my neighbors when I was a little child, and I sat with them as they cooked or cleaned, or they were simply friends. And that's the way I've always approached my work here. So it's been great. I've never worked.
Thank you. I appreciate especially, that you have a lot of administrative experience, but you also like the hands-on, which I think is almost true of almost every nurse, to have that experience. So thank you. Zainab, would you like to talk a little bit?
Well, I came to Goodwin House in 2000. That'll be like 21 years in January now, from different positions. I came in because one of the nurses that was here, Bonnie Bailey, some of you, I think Kathy would know her. We used to work at the Hermitage of Northern Virginia. And I've worked in Hermitage, Northern Virginia, Washington House, so like, all around as a CNA everywhere, 6 months, 7 months, and I'll be it. But when I came to Goodwin House, the very first time when the HR person, that was Susie Scott at the time, just that moment, I knew this is the place for me. I mean, I felt so welcomed and everything. We went there and, everything went well. And I was in school at the time at Northern Virginia Community College to get my associate degree. And Kathy Farmer was the director at the time here. And I last did my preceptorship at Alexandria Hospital. And right in between, the hospital asked me if I would work for them. And Kathy also asked me if I would work for them. And together we work it out. I said, why don't I just go and get the experience as a full-time at the hospital and then stay here PRN? And she allowed me to do so. And thank God for that. within 5-6 years, I came back now as a full-time employee at Goodwin House. And so that leads me from charge nurse from floor nurse to charge nurse, and then end up being supervisor. From there on, I came to the clinic. Then I went for my master's in nurse practitioner and graduated in 2007. And I would say for every moment that I've been at Goodwin House, I really liked it because I see myself grow with the support that we have, from people like Kathy and Karen, because Karen was very instrumental as well in ensuring, because we didn't have a Goodwin House nurse practitioner in place. So she made that happen. And so for me, that gratitude and commitment, the way I feel supported at Goodwin House, means a lot to me. And I have no choice but to give back. And I mean it with all my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to just make clear, in case people have trouble reading the names on the site. I know Justine introduced herself, but we have heard from Kathy Farmer, and now we just heard from Zainab Thomas. I just wanted to mention those names in case people have trouble reading the names on the screen if they're watching the recording later on. And I thank you, Zainab, for making the point, especially that I think there's camaraderie among the nurses, that there's a community of nurses and there's a mutual support, which I think is also important in your work. And we'll have occasion, I think, again, to talk about how you've kind of advanced in the ranks. That will come up in our discussions later on in terms of nursing. Why don't we turn now to Amina? If you could share some thoughts with us also on how you got here and your work.
Hi, my name is Amina Bikanu. I come to Goodwin House since 2008. Before I come to Goodwin House, I was working at Cherrydale and Manor. So one day I was passing, I live down the street. I saw the Goodwin House over here. I said, okay, I want to try this place. And somebody said, yes, they don't hire there easily. I said, but go try. So I said, okay. So one day I take a day off and come in the front of, by the clinic. That's what the place was. So the lady said, you can just put your name and fill the form, they will call you. So I filled the form and put my name, but they don't come. I keep on calling. I keep on calling them. Then Carla said, you really want to work in Goodwin House? I said, yeah. He said, she was like, yes, I can tell the way you call it and checking about your application. So one day she said, you can come for interview. So when I come, the interview, she interviewed Karen and Carla. That time she was our assistant DO in 2008. So since that time, I started working at Goodwin House. I've loved it so much. Goodwin House is like family. When you work here, it's like they don't treat you as a worker. They take you like you're part of them. Especially with the residents, all I think about Goodwin House is when I'm working, just to give a smile to the residents. And after you're taking care of them, they look at us like they said, what will I do without you? Then we'll smile together. I said, you can do anything. He said, no, I want to know what I can do without you. So any resident I work with, any day, anytime, they always like to look at me and say, you love to smile. I love your smile. You always smile. Keep it up. I said, I can't help it. This is because of the reason why I said, I think I like to take care of elderly. When I was growing up in Africa as a child, my father's sister, that's my auntie, who was named after me. I was named after her. She have Alzheimer's. So every day people go in that room to take care of her. But back then it was, they don't know what to do. And she was incontinent. So they get tired of taking care of her. They keep on running away. So one day I sneak in that room. I want to know what's going on in that room. So I met my auntie. She was incontinent. So I decided to clean her. So to clean and to cover it, take everything out. So I was doing it. My father think I went there to do something else. So he opened the door and saw me what I was doing. He stand there until I finished. I take the dairy stuff. I was going to the street to go wash the stuff. He followed me. He said, why do you go over there to do this? I said, because I don't know, my heart. I feel sorry for her. She don't have children. And when I went there, after I finished, my auntie looked at me and smiled. He said, who told you to come here? I said, nobody. He said, did somebody know that you're here? I said, no. I said, nobody know. I said, don't tell nobody. She said, I'm not gonna tell nobody, but God will reward you. So, and she gave me the same smile that I'm carrying on today. And as I can say, since I'm in Goodwin House, I really appreciate it. I never look back and think I regret where I was working on manicure or charity. I resigned because I find Goodwin is a very good place to work. And I really appreciate it. And I'm always happy to give back to my residents.
Thank you. I noticed that the the background for our caregivers are little hearts, and I think you just brought out in your story how there's a lot of heart that has to go in terms of nursing, and you don't just take care of physical needs and the body, but you really help take care of our souls. You help take care of our spirits and our attitudes. So I appreciate that. Charity, would you like to share with us? And this is Charity Ampong.
Hi, thank you. Hi, my name is Charity Ampong. I'm the ADON at Goodwin House, Alexandria. How I get to Goodwin House, I was in a nursing school LPN program at TC Williams. So this is one of the clinical sites that they bring the student here for clinicals. So, and being a nurse, I think one good thing about the nursing training is that they take you to so many different aspects of nursing, you know, hospitals, surgeries, emergency room, long-term care, psych. So all the places that I went during my clinical rotation, I think I fell in love with Goodwin House when I was here. So I keep on saying, as soon as I finish school, this will be the first place that I'll work. So very soon I finished school, I get my license, and first place I applied was Goodwin House. I think it was Zainab who said that Goodwin House, they don't hire. You know, that time it was very difficult to get opportunity to work in Goodwin House because people don't leave. So there's no opening for you to apply. But I did, and I get a response back that, you know, there's no opening at this time. We'll keep your application. And almost every week, I'll send my resume through the HR. It doesn't matter whether there's opening or not. So I did exactly the same thing that Amina did, consistently submitting my resume. And I think that time Trudy was the DON over here. And she called me, and then she said, the way you keep on sending me your application, I feel like I just want to give you the job. And that is how I get a job here. So I started as LPN. At that time, we used to have a charge nurse and medication nurse, you know, kind of med tech, but you are a nurse passing medication. That's what I was doing. And I saw that there was a lot of opportunities here in Goodwin House, because I already worked somewhere else for almost a year before I get opportunity to come here. And I saw so many different things, compare this place to that place. So every little opportunity that comes up, I'll jump on it, especially training and education. And I think that is one thing that Goodwin does for staff that many places doesn't. And that is what kept me here. From there, I went back to school. I got my RN. I was a supervisor. I became a nurse manager. And now I'm an assistant director of nursing. Somebody asked me, why do I have so many name tags? I kept every position that I have, the name tags that they give me, and I keep on adding to it. This is rare evidence of how I grow in Goodwin House. I've been here for 21 years, and I work in so many levels, like I said. Why I became a nurse was that back home when I was in high school, we have like team leaders, kind of, I think that's what I'll call it. We call it school prefect. So I was the lead of the health team in high school, kind of. It was a boarding school. So in the girls' dormitory, if a girl is sick and they're going to the hospital, one of the students have to go with the person. And I was the lead of that team. So anybody going to the hospital, I have to assist the person to go to the hospital. And back home, the healthcare is totally different from here. Some of us that came from Africa, it feels like you don't have much say. It's all about the doctors and the nurses making decisions for you. So somebody's sick and the treatment, sometimes I just don't like the way they treat the student. Girls come, they think they are pregnant, even you have abdominal pain. So that is how I felt like, I think I can be a nurse and do a better job than many of these nurses here. And from that time onwards, I decided to be a nurse. So right after high school, I applied to nursing school back home. I get accepted, and then I get opportunity to come here at the same time. So when I get here, I just continue to pursue my education to become a nurse. I started as a CNA, and then I went back to nursing school. And that is how I get here, and I'm still here. And I'm so forever grateful for Goodwin House, because it's a wonderful place to work, and I can't just say enough about that. So thank you.
Thank you. I can see again another example of people who have kind of moved along from one place to the other and advanced in the profession. And I think also you give us a sense nurses are persistent, right? And that carries over into a whole lot of things that you have to do in your profession. So thank you. Sarah, how about you? Sarah Alston.
Yes. So my name is Sarah Austin. I'm fairly new to the Goodwin House family. I've been working here for about 1.5 years. So I currently work on the James House. I work on Bluestone sometimes. And then during the pandemic, I had the privilege of working over on the Willis House. Funny story as far as how I ended up at Goodwin House. So I'm originally from South Carolina. I moved here from North Carolina. Pretty much I came to DC and Virginia for a week just to job search. Using my GPS, I ended up lost, took a wrong turn, and I was just like, okay, let me just stop and recollect myself. So I literally randomly just went into a parking lot and Googled best LTCs near me. And Goodwin House came up #1 on the list. So I was like, okay. So I put the address in my GPS and went from there, and I'm here. So that's how I ended up here. But now that I think about it, like initially I was like, okay, it started out as an accident. I took a wrong turn, but I feel now that I ended up exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't, any of that. I feel like working here, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. So very grateful to be a part of the Goodwin House family. To address your question of what made me or who inspired me to become a caregiver, I would have to say initially my parents inspired me to become a caregiver. As a small child, they educated me on the benefits of having job stability, going into a career that'll allow for advancement, the benefits of being financially secure, and nursing was that. But as I kind of embraced the healthcare realm, and in middle school, I got a part of HOSA, Health Occupation Students of America. So I was a part of that, and that introduced me to healthcare. And then I worked as a CNA for a long time, worked as an LPN, and currently working as an RN. Through those experiences, that's really what solidified it for me to say, hey, this is a profession for you. This is where your passion lies. So I would say that my parents inspired it, but as I progressed through my career and came upon different experiences, that's really what made me feel like this is the passion. This is my job. This is where I want to be.
Good, thank you. I see you kind of show a good combination of how family influences and how a lot of other people influence, and then at the same time some serendipity of getting
Yes.
you here, which is part of life. Well,
Yes.
thank you for sharing all of that. What I'd like to do now is just turn a little bit to your work and maybe a little bit more insight on what goes on in the nursing profession. Maybe if you could each share with us a high point in your career, if you can think of that, maybe a person or a moment or a particular story you want to tell of what brought you satisfaction in your work, what brings you joy in your daily life. Also, we'd be interested in hearing if you wanted how you take care of yourself, because nursing is it's such a demanding profession of always giving to other people. How do you take care of yourself when you do that? And then especially for this past year, what brought you through this tough year? How did you kind of manage to get through all of that? So just pick any of those and share them with us. Why don't I start with Charity this time?
I think what brings me satisfaction as a nurse is seeing the smile in the resident faces at the end of the day. Like you said about Kathy, I like the leadership part, being in the administration, but I enjoy being the hands-on at the bedside, talking to the resident, helping them with their needs. And I think that is what brought me the most joy, is making a difference in somebody's life, especially when quality of life comes to play. And I think that's why I love Goodwin House more than any other place, is that Goodwin House is always looking forward, to find something better. Even though we are the best, I know we are, but we don't just stay here. We're always looking for other things to do to make it better than what we are doing. And I think that is outstanding and is more than any other place. So that is what brings me satisfaction. Another thing is the relationship. The relationship I build with my co-workers and the teammates. It doesn't matter what department anybody work, housekeeping, dining service, nursing. It's just the relationship in Goodwin House is more than anything. People don't just care about your work and how you do your work or how much you do or how well you do your work. They also care about you as a person and your family as well. So able to find that kind of relationship in a workplace, I think, is what brings me the satisfaction as a nurse.
Thank you. Kathy, would you like to share?
Sure. I think, when you talk about highlights in the career, I think that almost every day is a highlight. I walk down the hall and the resident who's walking past me says, "It's nice to see you. I just feel comforted that you're here." And it's like, "Oh, thank you. I feel good about seeing you too. I feel the same about you." It's, it's such a positive exchange with residents. It's every day, and it's a highlight with, lots of different moments that are highlighted. Joy on a daily basis. It's, adding a little comfort to someone's day. I visited a lady on her birthday on healthcare, and I don't see her all the time, but she said, "If you ever need someone to vouch for you," she said, I'll talk to marketing. Everyone's so kind here. And, it's really just a great experience to be involved in that. Taking care of myself, I'm not good at it. And I think we'll find a lot of nurses are just the same. I enjoy family and friends, and I enjoy, spending time with them. And, being a grandmother is probably the most fun role I've ever had in my life. So I enjoy that. During the past year, what gave us hope? It's been a tough year. Denying that would be, just ludicrous. And I'll have to be honest, I really thought about retiring at, as this came by. I'm, of the age and a few other comorbidities that would make me an at-risk person. And, discussing it with my husband, he said, "You don't want to go out that way, do you?" And I said, "No, I really don't." And the hope that something I know could help my teammates and help the residents. So I hung in and hopefully was able to, contribute to some things I learned over the years. The source of hope was really, the pure courage that staff showed in caring for residents who, were positive with COVID. People didn't back down. We had one staff member who, because others were becoming ill, by being exposed, worked like 6 days straight, 16 hours. She was one of our, a few people that remained negative because of exposure. So and witnessing that was really, almost unbelievable. So it was, just, I guess, my privilege to be here and help and witness such commitment.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very touching story. Amina, how about you sharing with us?
Highlight for me personally is this year. This year I was during the COVID time. I come home, I come to work in the morning, and I have one of my residents. Well, I was doing rounds. So when I get to him, he was really, really sick. He told me that, he said, Amina, I'm not feeling well. So I saw it sounds like this, and it's freezing. He said, I think they said I have the thing. I said, really? So he grabbed me like this. I said, oh, I don't supposed to hold you. I think I'm sick. I said, no, it's okay. He said, no, Amina, you have kids, you have little kids. I said, it's okay. It's fine, just grab me. I said, well, how can I help you? He said, I just need to be changed. I said, okay, so you don't supposed to? I said, no, let me put my gown. I have my gown already. So let me do. He said, what about your children? I said, it's okay. He said, I don't want you to get sick. You're a strong woman. I said, it's fine. I can breathe. So I said, don't worry, let me clean you up. He said, you're going to take me to the hospital. I said, that's why I have to take care of you. So I did, as I did. Sorry, I'm sorry. And he ended up to the hospital and he never come back. And he was in the hospital. He always told his wife to call me to check on me if I'm okay. He said, I'm worried for Amina. Maybe she'll be sick. And I end up getting the COVID, and with my children, together with my children, we get COVID together. I don't feel it because I feel happy because I helped my resident, and he went to the hospital. The only thing I feel is he never come back to me. But the wife called me and said, Amina, I'm sorry. My husband said to say thank you to you. He was always asking about you. I just want you to know. He always think about you. I'm sorry. So I went home. When they said I was positive, they said, I called the doctor to check my kids, my 13-year-old and the 12-year-old at that time, and they to become positive. But guess what? I was home. The foundation really, really take good care of us. The foundation take good care of us, taking of us and help us with the grants. And at that time, I already stopped my second job. I used to work 2 jobs. I already stopped working at the other job. So now I'm working only 1 job. With this 1 job, with which is good enough, I never regret it because I never feel there's always food in the table. And even when I went down to my bill that I cannot pay my bill, the foundation helped me. And they uplifted me until I come back to work. So I really, really appreciate it. The only thing I miss is like the person never come back. But I thank you so much that we really appreciate, and they really, really take care of us. The foundation is really great. Thank you.
Yeah, we really thank you for your work too. These are stories we never hear because you have HIPAA requirements and everything is always kept private. And we just appreciate all of that. That really tells us what's gone on here in the past year, and we really appreciate it. Zainab, would you like to share something?
Yeah, so this pandemic has been a tough one this year. I mean, like many I've already shared with you, for me, hands-on is my favorite thing to do. I do love to get hands-on and to talk to residents. Most of the time we come to me, that kind of relationship is there, not necessarily what you do for them health-wise and all that, but that one-on-one, being there for them, listening. I found it very touching and very endearing. One time this year, one of the residents, I went in just to say hi in his second floor. This was the peak of time when they were not allowing visitors or family. His wife lives here on this, independent living. So I went in after, helping him out with ADLs. And then he looked at me and said, Z, I worked for the government for a long time where there's a sensitive area. He said, I don't open myself up to a lot of people, but you're one of them, and I thank you. To me, that was just, in a moment of, I can't even express it, but I'll say, I used to admire women and men of strong personality, but what this does for me this time I really look to people that have empathy and compassion, whatever they do. And that, for me, at this point in my life, takes me a long way. And I hope to carry that forward. There are many other things. And I hope for each one of us here, if you take the time and be friends with your residents, talk with them, be with them, it is so gratifying. It's unbelievable. I sometimes think to myself, I said, I'm being paid to do something that I like to do. I wonder if I wasn't being paid, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't mind to pay to go do it. That's how much I feel being with the residents of Goodwin House. So I hand it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll remember that word empathy, which I think is really important. Sarah, would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. So, there's so many moments that bring me gratification and that bring me satisfaction, but just a specific moment that I'm thinking of is one time when I was working as an LPN. Prior to working at Goodwin House, but I was working as an LPN. I was caring for a hospice patient. He was actively dying. He didn't have any friends, didn't have any family. He was a warded estate. So didn't have anybody to be with him at that moment. And that night, there was a nursing shortage. We were short-staffed. The care partners was running around busy, stretched thin. The nurses were stretched really thin. So I remember going into his room to provide some type of care for him. And when I was leaving, like he grabbed my hand, clenched my hand really tight. He couldn't talk at the moment, but it was almost like he was saying, "Don't leave me." So, I was very busy, but I stayed, sat at his bedside and held his hand. And like I said, he wasn't able to talk. And, literature tells us that in the dying process, hearing is typically the last thing to go. So at that moment, he may not have been able to feel me touching him. He probably wasn't able to smell anything. He may not have even been able to see me, but just sitting there holding his hand for me was that moment that really brought satisfaction. Like, it wasn't how well I can put an IV in or getting urine back from a Foley, all those things that us nurses get hyped up about. It wasn't any of that special skills. It was just me being able to sit at his bedside and telling him, "You're not alone. I'm here. It's okay." And true story, like after I said that to him, like his grip lessened and he transitioned, so for me, again, it was that moment that really made me realize, wow, this is nursing. It was the bare basic, took me back to the bare basic of just having time, like Zainab said, and being caring and compassionate. That was the definitive moment for me. So that was it. And I think about, like most recently now, we've been having like a lot of hospice residents and stuff where I'm at. And, I just think about that moment. I just have to always remember we're always so busy, but we just have to really take time to slow down and really care and give a caring moment, not just be so giving meds, passing meds, doing this, doing that. It's really important to really take time to listen to your residents and, be the basic essential nurse. That's my moment.
Good. Thank you. We've heard these stories about empathy more than once, and you begin to see that it's really built into what it means to be a nurse. So we appreciate that. Justine, why don't you share with us?
Yes, thanks. I am grateful to be coming after Sarah because she touches on a couple sentiments that really have run true in my career as a nurse. And the first one is that there is an art and science to nursing. So as nurses, we are artists and we're teachers. There's a medical side to things, and there's also this sort of bigger spiritual aspect to what we do as nurses and caregivers. And the other sentiment is that in my line of work, I at least can speak for that dying is not a medical event. And I think that as nurses, and some of what Sarah was describing and what Amina was describing, being privileged to be at the bedside and walk that journey with people who are at the end of their life, is an amazing gift. but it's also been really nice and rewarding and spiritually fulfilling for me, and I think I speak for all of us, to be able to kind of craft and I guess co-create somebody's end of life experience with them, artistically, in the sense that we can be experts in how to make them comfortable, come up with creative ideas as to how to help honor them and their last moments, their last, help their family honor them, teach their family, teach them about what to expect as these changes occur. And then really emphasize through that, and maybe sometimes it takes even just saying that, dying is not a medical event. And so as nurses, we're able to kind of bring that spirit and that art of who we are and that caregiving to also the, some of the more medical needs that people do have, and join them together to make a hopefully a good experience, for people, and have dignified, peaceful life and death experiences. So there are so many moments of connection that I could talk about from our work. I think I'll probably cry if I did. One in particular that stands out: about 10 years ago, I was actually a nurse in oncology at Georgetown Hospital, and there is a patient who was my age. I mean, I was probably 30 years old, and he had end-stage cancer, and he had been in the hospital, and he was getting worked up, and all these drains and tubes put in him. And he knew in his heart that he was dying. And I could tell by looking at him. And they asked for me to be their nurse, he and his wife. And so I went in that morning, and he said, "Justine, I know I'm dying. What can I do?" And I had some experience, of course, with helping people that are dying, and also working in hospice on the side at that point. And so I just sat with him and his wife, and I told him what would happen. And it was so empowering, to teach him about it, but to also normalize the process for him. And I was able to tell him what it would be like, how the hospice nurse would be able to help him, how he would help his family. And I think that gave him some, some comfort in what was to come. And I got him out of the door with hospice within like the next 2 hours to go home. And he ended up being at home and passing with his wife by his side a couple of days later. And his wife actually reached back out to me, and she's one of my best friends to this day. And we, share that special connection. And so that for me was really powerful and kind of solidified the work I wanted to do as a hospice nurse. And sure, all that caregiving, it takes a lot of our emotional and spiritual energy because we're giving to other people. So we have to be very cognizant about how we protect that energy so we have enough for ourselves and for our families. Through the years, our hospice team has grown a lot, and we've gone from about 20 patients to now serving 100. So my responsibilities have increased. Our staff has increased, but I've found that really trying to make sure I have those boundaries between home life and work life when this job is actually 24/7 for our team. Just really try to soak up my kids, and when I'm home, be home. It's taken some active attention to really achieve that. And getting through this last year was, wow. All of us have experienced it a different way. And I ended up working at home for a long time. I was grateful that I have a position that allowed me to do that, support our team from home. And I think a lot of us, especially those in leadership, had suffered, suffers were through decision fatigue. There was a lot of decision fatigue that we all had to endure, but knowing that we, worked for an agency that put us first, put the residents first, put all our patients first, and gave us the tools we needed to get through, and the support was, I knew this was going to be temporary. I mean, certainly there are lasting effects of the pandemic, but relatively speaking, this is a temporary situation that we're in. So that helped me get through that. And then the last thing I will say, and I think a lot of you nurses will agree with me, is that people ask me, how do you do what you do? Gosh, it's so hard being a hospice nurse, or just being a nurse in general. And I found the easiest way to answer is that nursing, it's not a place I go to work. It's not something separate from who I am. I don't go there, sit at the desk to do something separate and then come home and be someone else. Nursing is an extension of who I am. So this type of the nursing I do, and the the end of life care and the hands-on care, the supporting of my staff at this point, since I'm not at the bedside. It's all an extension of who I am as a spiritual being. So that is sort of, I like to say that because I think it sums it up pretty well.
Thank you. I appreciate all of the sharing that each of you did. It was very, very personal sharing and gave a really deep sense of what goes on in your profession. I get the sense that you're not only medical people, but you're teachers, you're psychologists, you're clergy people. I mean, there are just so many things that are wrapped into what you have to do. We really appreciate it. Well, we turn for the final round here to the future. You've heard Rob already describe the shortage in the profession. There's a problem of burnout. And so we just like to know if you've kind of faced any of that, or if you've thought about any of that. And then we know the foundation has tried in the past, especially this past year, but even outside of that, we've tried to give emergency assistance to people. We have a tuition assistance program that we're giving, and we also had the citizenship program that we've done for the staff. So, have you experienced any of this personally, or do you know colleagues who have seen some of the things that the foundation offered? And just in general, how are you kind of looking to the future and to the shortage of nursing and all of that? So maybe you can share with us. Why don't we start this time with Zainab?
All right, thank you for that. This is Zainab again. Yes, I am personally a beneficiary, a big beneficiary for that matter, for the foundation. Because all my schooling, including the associate degree up to the master's level, it's all a big support from Goodwin House. I mean, I can't be, and not only the financial support, even the moral support, and working with your schedule as far as giving you time to take classes and all that. It worked tremendously to get me where I am today. So I think kudos to the foundation and all those that support it, whether they're staff members or resident as well as family members. And I see that in play as well as not only that, but during this pandemic, something occurred when they were giving that $25 gift certificate to staff members. I have seen some staff members collecting their own and giving it to other staff members, even though they also have their own $25 check, but they feel like, you're in need more than I am. So they give that. So that to me, is just a way of how the Goodwin House will play. I mean, not to say of the, Christmas fund or gift that they give that makes a whole bunch of difference in our family's life and our lives. So I'm a very big beneficiary of what Goodwin House is doing to get us where we are. And to those that are in-house, whether they're in other departments and they're interested in doing any other field that they're interested in doing, to do so, because their support is there. Just have to be your own self and do yourself a favor and work hard at it. It's not a child's play, but you can do it. The support is there. So for that, I am thankful and grateful.
Good, thank you. Justine, would you like to share?
Yeah, the nursing, the current nursing shortage affects all of us, not just in hospice. I know home health and healthcare center and our care partners. It's going to hopefully not become much worse, but we're preparing right now at Goodwin House to try to soften that blow. I will say that, while we may not be able to, immediately get the nurses that we need in the door right away, I do think, and I appreciate our creative leaders, our leaders that are giving us the resources we need, that are listening and that are thinking outside of the box and coming up with creative ways to not only help us recruit new nurses, but to retain the nurses we have, and that are willing to think a little bit differently and work artistically and creatively to get us where we need to be. So I the creative leadership for me is really the innovative creative leadership is really important.
Good. Thank you. Charity?
Thank you for that. I can concur with Zainab and Justine for the tuition assistant. I'm one of the beneficiaries in Goodwin House. I think I benefited more than almost anybody. Like I said before, I started as LPN, and from a CNA to LPN, I thought that was it for me. The pay was okay. You know, I was able to meet my needs. I started having family. I wasn't thinking about going to school anytime soon, but Goodwin House is a place that people, like I said, the leaders don't just interested in what you do or the work you do. They're interested in your growth as well. And I had a leader that was that time, Joan Garcia was the DON at that time. She took great interest in my education, my welfare to become somebody. So she encouraged me to go to school, and through Goodwin House tuition assistant, I didn't pay anything for getting my associate degree from my own pocket, like paying anything. I was working full-time. I have 2 kids, and I took part-time classes, and Goodwin House covered everything for me. I don't know how I could have done that without a tuition assistant. And I don't think I'll be where I am if I didn't go back to school. So I think there was a question about how can Goodwin House help caregivers serve better. Nursing is evolving. It's not a stagnant thing that you learn one thing and it stays the same. The care and compassion is in you. That one doesn't change. But how to apply your skills changes. New things comes up. So nurses, we need education. Continual education, I think, is the key for us to be able to provide the quality of care that we always looking forward to provide. So tuition assistant in Goodwin House, I think, is one of the best things that they can do for nurses. And I feel like some nurses want to continue schooling, including myself. I want to go back. Now I have 2 kids that are going to college. I want to support them. How do I go back to school, working full-time to support my family, and then supporting them in their own college education? So when I think about that, I put myself back because I don't want to incur any more loans from college. So like I said, so we have so many people like that in our midst that I feel like tuition assistant is something that Goodwin House can add a little bit more to it. Or those who were hired that already have tuition loans that they are paying, we can assist them to cover up that so they can improve on education, because education is the key for success in this nursing field. You need to learn every day. You can't just stay where you are. So you can provide the best quality of care for the nurses, for your residents. So I think that is one thing that I would say about that. About the grant, everybody is talking about it. During COVID time, I think we see what we call family in Goodwin House. Like I think Zainab said that they're giving card and people giving it to others. I remember one time HR supplied us with groceries. There were so many staff members that felt like, I don't need grocery. I think I have enough at home. But they will come and pick it up. They know who needed more. And some of them even came to me, if you have leftover, this person need a little bit more help than we are, we give it. And they were looking up for each other. Even to their neighbors. There was somebody who came to me and said, we are blessed to work in Goodwin House. We get everything that we need. Even you go to HR, you tell them, they will direct you on how to get, support and other stuff. I have a neighbor who lost a job, is just a single mother, doesn't have any income coming in. Any groceries that I pick from here, I take to this person. So if you have anything extra, can you give it to me to take to this person? So these are the things that we see in Goodwin House that you don't see anywhere else. So I think the leadership in Goodwin House, they don't just lead, but they direct, they care for the staff, and the resident. So I always say the joy, if you have a joy of coming to work, that reflect on the amount of work or how you do your work. Going to a workplace that you feel like this is just a job and you just go and do your job and go home, you will not be as effective as you go to work and you feel like this is not even a job. Like Zainab said, I agree with her that you are doing what you love to do and getting paid to do what you love to do. And that is Goodwin House. So I cannot say enough. I think there was a question about Goodwin House and other places. I have church members that are nurses, and it's a team of nurses that we give education when COVID came to our church members. We have conferences and all that. And anytime we are talking and I tell them about what Goodwin House is doing for staff, it's so amazing that many organizations were not doing any of the things that we did. For example, that hero pay that we did, sometimes we take things for granted because it became part of the staff pay. So you feel like it wasn't like really anything extra. But when you look at it, every month, every staff member received this much money in addition to their own pay. I think that was like way going above and beyond in taking care of the staff need. So I think Goodwin House is doing a lot. It did a lot, more than enough during the COVID time. But moving forward, I think what I really want to see that I think will help is career development, skill development, creating a pathway for people to, grow. We have nurses go to school and come back and be doing the same thing that they are doing. And they feel like, okay, now I have this degree, but I'm still doing something that I used to do as an LPN. So those are the things that I think moving forward we can do to help sustain our nurses, to make this place more enticing for them not to think about going somewhere else for, a higher position or something like that.
Great, thank you. Amina, I haven't called on you yet, huh?
Oh, I'm talking for the grant, because that's what I received from the Goodwin House. The Grant Foundation was so helpful to me because during that time when I lose my second job, I stopped my second job, and through the Grant Foundation, they lift us up, me and my children, while we are home. So I really, I say I'm really grateful for that, from having the foundation, getting help from the foundation throughout the 6 weeks that I was home. So I'm really grateful for that. So moving forward, like you said, like the other people said, to provide more education and uplift so that most of us can go up instead of going down. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And Sarah?
Yeah, so just like to piggyback off of what everybody said as far as the tuition reimbursement and the emergency assistance, I think all of those are great. I personally have received the tuition assistance, and it provided opportunity to further education. Education is important when it comes to residents. It's important when it comes to healthcare in general. And I just think it's great. And not only to receive assistance, but Goodwin House provides an opportunity for career advancement. So once you do receive that degree, you don't have to feel like, okay, now I have to go somewhere else to utilize my degree. You can possibly find an opportunity within the company to grow. And I think that's an amazing thing. You have options to either stay or pursue your degree somewhere else. So I think that's great. As far as the emergency assistance, I have coworkers that told me they received it and we're so grateful for it. COVID has presented a challenge for a lot of people. People have lost their jobs, and it has become a financial strain on a lot of people. And I think it's important for us as nurses to take ourselves out of the picture and look at other people's situations, consider other people's situations, because it's very real. It's a realistic thing. Financial problems can be very realistic. So the emergency fund, I think it's amazing that Goodwin House offers that. Maslow's hierarchy tells us that if your basic needs aren't met, you really can't focus to pursue anything else higher until those basic needs are met: food, water, clothing, shelter. And I think that the emergency assistance allow people to meet those basic needs by way of paying bills or whatever. And inadvertently, it reduces stress. So now the staff don't have to call out. They can come into work and they can focus and provide optimal care to the residents, because they don't have to think about, how am I going to eat when I get home? How are my kids going to eat? Are my lights even going to be still on once I get home? You know, those are very real problems. And I think that it's a great thing that the foundation can help with those problems if needed. So I think it's good.
Thank you. Now we want to hear from Kathy, I think, right?
Sure. So during the pandemic, the foundation was great, and the organization, all of Goodwin House supported staff really well. We even had groceries provided, and you know, people could go and pick up what they needed, and you know, it served two purposes: really infection control, keeping people out of, you know, grocery stores where, you know, they were being in contact with other people, and as well as, you know, helping provide the needed supplies. I hire probably most of the nursing staff that comes through here, as far as interviewing and you know, assessing people. And people come because Goodwin House is known to be a learning organization. And, you know, that's a very positive thing. And that the word is the word is out there on the street for sure that Goodwin House, you know, will help with education. I got my master's in nursing administration through tuition assistance while I was working here the first time. And yeah, I felt like it was a benefit that if I didn't use, I'd lose. So it was an impetus to do that. So.
Good, thank you. Well, you people have spoken from the heart, and I have to say, if you represent what all of our nurses are like, I am very happy to be here, and I think we've got a tremendous staff. You know, we put signs up at the beginning of the epidemic saying, "You are our heroes." I think the stories that you shared personally just illustrate that very, very much, and so. You know, I've been looking at the chat, and there aren't any questions in the chat, but there are comments and congratulations, and people that are just recognizing you for everything that you've done. I just want to mention to the audience, if people do have questions or other comments or observations, to feel free to send that to Valerie and to the foundation, and they can certainly communicate the messages to the nurses or to the individual panelists. But I just want to thank you all for sharing today. I think this has been very enlightening for me, and I think also very touching. I really appreciate touching base with all of you. So I'd like to just turn things over to Valerie now to end, and I think we can all disappear from the screen.
Wow. Wow is about all I can say. I'm sure you were just as inspired as I was in listening to these incredible colleagues. What a privilege it was to hear their stories of empathy, of compassion, to learn of their persistence, their eagerness to learn new skills. It just makes us want to work even harder for every person here. So on behalf of the foundation team and all of our donors, I want to thank every single one of those incredibly inspiring panelists, to thank our moderator, Tony Tambasco, and our leader, Rob Liebrick. If you have any additional questions for our panelists, or you'd like to learn more about the foundation, you have the contact information there on the screen. And I just thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll encourage others to watch the recording of this. What a pleasure and privilege it is to work alongside these colleagues. Thanks so much.